when the night had settled into that quiet, uneasy stillness that makes every sound feel sharper. My phone rang. One single vibration, then another. The name on the screen didn't pop up. It was just a number. Unknown, unassuming. Something I would normally ignore. For a moment, I even thought it was a pocket dial. One of those accidental calls you dismiss without thinking. But then I heard it. A shaky breath, a muffled sob, and a voice I would recognize even if the world went silent. "Mom, help me." My heart stopped. Not slowed, stopped. It was my daughter. My only child. My Nora. Her voice was trembling so violently, it sounded like she was speaking from inside a storm. Every instinct in me went alert. Like someone had gripped me by the spine and yanked me upright. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, afraid to miss even a single word. "Mom, I'm at the police station. He hit me, and he filed a report against me." For a moment, the world tilted. I forgot how to breathe. I felt like the floor beneath me wasn't holding me anymore, as if gravity had suddenly reconsidered its commitment. "He what?" The words ripped out of me before I could stop them. Her sobbing grew louder, more broken, each breath clipped, like her lungs were refusing to cooperate. "I didn't do anything, Mom. I swear." He started yelling, and "Mom, please, I'm scared. They're saying I might have to stay here. I don't know what to do." I closed my eyes and felt something cold slide down the back of my neck. A rage, not hot, not explosive, but cold, surgical, controlled. The kind of rage that comes only when someone you love has been hurt in a way that feels personal down to your bones. I didn't ask what happened. I didn't ask if she was okay. I didn't demand details. I just said, "I'm coming." And I grabbed my coat. Not the expensive one. Not the flashy one the newspapers like to photograph me in. Just the one closest to the door. Because when your child is crying for help, the value of fabric means nothing. The house lights were still on, but everything felt dark. I moved fast, keys in my hand, purse hanging half open on my arm. My feet barely touched the floor. The night outside was colder than it had been an hour ago. Or maybe it was just me. The air bit into my face like needles as I rushed to my car. The engine roared to life before I'd even put on my seatbelt. "Hold on, Nora, I'm coming." I repeated it like a prayer, like a promise, like a threat to the universe itself. The roads were almost empty, but I barely noticed the traffic lights. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, not with fear, but with something deeper, something primal. I replayed her voice over and over, the way she gasped for breath between words, the way she sounded so small. My Nora wasn't weak. She was stubborn, fiery, independent to a fault. For her to cry like that, something terrible must have happened. And he? That man she loved? That man she trusted? He hit her? Then filed a report against her? I gripped the wheel tighter until my knuckles turned white. As I neared the police station, the fluorescent lights flickered along the edge of the building. The parking lot was mostly empty, save for a patrol car idling near the entrance. I pulled in, parked crookedly across two spaces, and practically flew out of the car. Inside, the station's harsh overhead lights greeted me with that cold, bureaucratic glow that makes everyone look tired and guilty. A young officer was sitting at the front desk, flipping through paperwork, barely looking up as I approached. "I'm here for my daughter," I said, breathless. "Nora Hale." He looked up, slowly, lazily, and then he really looked at me. The transformation was immediate. The officer's eyes widened. His posture snapped straight, like someone had pulled a string attached to his spine. The color drained from his face so fast, it looked like someone had flipped a switch. His lips parted, but no sound came out at first. He stuttered once, then twice. You're her mother? His voice cracked on the last word. I nodded once, sharply. He swallowed so hard I could see his throat bob. Ma'am, I didn't know, I swear. If I'd known she was your daughter. Oh, there it was. Recognition. Fear. Respect. Not because I was someone's mother. Because I was me. Because the entire city knew my name. Because people whispered it when they thought I couldn't hear. Because I wasn't just any mother looking for her child. I was Helena Vale, businesswoman, investor, philanthropist, millionaire, a woman powerful enough to make or break careers with a single phone call. And clearly, this officer knew that. His hands trembled as he rushed to stand. I'll get the supervising officer right away. Please, come with me. I didn't move. Where is my daughter? He blinked rapidly, like his brain was glitching under pressure. She's in interview room 2. But please, ma'am, if you could. I stepped forward, my voice cold enough to freeze water mid-air. Take me to her. Now. Something about the way I said it made him flinch. He didn't argue. He didn't hesitate. He simply nodded and hurried down the hallway, motioning for me to follow. Each step felt heavier than the last. I could hear muffled voices behind the doors, a phone ringing, someone typing. But all I could think about was Nora, my little girl, alone in some small room, probably shaking, probably terrified. As we reached the door, I felt an ache in my chest, so deep it felt like it was carved into me. The officer paused, his hand hovering over the handle. Ma'am, just so you know, we didn't understand the full situation. We thought, well, he filed first, so protocol. Open the door. He opened it. And there she was, Nora. Her eyes red, her cheeks wet, her hands clasped together so tightly, I feared she'd bruise her palms. She looked up at me, and in that instant, whatever strength she'd been holding on to broke. Mom. I stepped into the room, and the door closed behind us with a soft click that sounded like the world resetting. The moment I saw Nora's face, something inside me twisted so hard it felt like my ribs were tightening around my heart. Her eyes were swollen, lashes stuck together with dried tears. Her hair, usually neat and tucked behind her ears, was messy, like someone had grabbed it. Her sweater had a stretched seam near the collar, something only rough handling could cause. Every detail hit me like a punch. I crossed the small room in 2 steps and wrapped my arms around her. She melted into me like a child, clutching my coat with trembling hands. Mom, I didn't do anything, she whispered into my shoulder, her voice so fragile it made my throat burn. He yelled, and he shoved me, and then he told them I hit him. They believed him. They believed him. I held her tighter, my jaw clenching so hard I felt pain shoot up into my temples. I wanted answers. I wanted the truth. I wanted to find that man, her boyfriend, the one she trusted, and ask him why. Why he would lay a hand on her. Why he would lie. Why he would drag her here like a criminal. But right now, she needed her mother, not a storm. I'm here, I murmured, gently brushing the hair from her face. You're safe now. She nodded into my shoulder, but her breathing was shallow, uneven. Trauma lives in the rhythm of breath. Hers told me she hadn't felt safe for hours. A soft knock at the door interrupted us. It swung open, and a tall man with a stern face stepped inside. His badge gleamed under the fluorescent lights. He carried a clipboard, and a tension in his shoulders that didn't belong to someone relaxed. He scanned the room, and when his eyes met mine, his entire expression flickered. His eyebrows arched. His posture straightened. "Mrs. Vale," he said, voice tight. "I didn't expect— I wasn't informed that the young woman was related to you." "That seems to be a pattern here," I replied calmly, but there was nothing calm about the way his throat tightened. He cleared his throat and shifted the clipboard in his hands. "Ma'am, I want to assure you we're reassessing the situation." "Reassessing," I repeated slowly. "Is that what we call holding a crying assault victim in a room for nearly 2 hours?" He froze. Nora flinched beside me, and the officer quickly tried to recover. The report filed by the boyfriend, Mr. Colin Ward, claimed she initiated physical aggression. He had minor scratches on his arm, and since he filed first, protocol required. "Protocol," I said again, but this time it didn't sound like a word. It sounded like a blade sharpening. Nora squeezed my hand. "Mom, don't— it's okay. I just want to go home." No, it wasn't okay. Nothing about this was okay, and home wasn't enough, not yet. But I smiled at her softly. You're leaving with me tonight." I looked at the officer. "Right?" He didn't even pretend to hesitate. "Yes, ma'am, of course." His voice shook. "Good." I guided Nora to her feet. She swayed for a moment, so I steadied her with an arm around her waist. Her body felt too limp, too tired. This wasn't just stress. This was shock. We began walking toward the door, but the officer stepped slightly into our path. "Mrs. Vale, there is still some paperwork." I raised a hand. He stopped speaking instantly. "My daughter will not be questioned further tonight. If you need anything else, you speak to me, not her. Understood?" "Yes, absolutely." He nodded so fast his glasses nearly slipped off. Nora kept her gaze down, as if afraid that meeting anyone's eyes would break her again. My heart shattered at the sight. This wasn't my daughter, the confident, bright, outspoken young woman who grew up telling me she never wanted anyone to silence her. Someone had made her small, and he was going to answer for that. We stepped out into the hallway. 2 younger officers were standing near the corner, whispering, but the moment they noticed me, they straightened like toy soldiers. One elbowed the other subtly, as if saying, "That's her." Word travels fast. As we walked past them, one mumbled under his breath, "I didn't know she was related to Helena Vale." Good. Let them talk. Let them all talk. Because tonight, everyone here would learn exactly what happens when someone harms a Vale. When we finally stepped into the lobby, the cold air from outside drifted through the automatic doors, carrying relief with it. Nora inhaled deeply, like she was tasting freedom. But just as we reached the exit, a voice behind us called out, "Mrs. Vale?" I turned sharply. Another officer, older, gray at the temples, hurried toward us. He offered a respectful nod, the kind people give to someone whose name they've only heard in business magazines. "I apologize for the way this evening unfolded," he said sincerely. "We didn't have the full picture." I stared at him for a long moment. "You still don't." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Silence did the work for me. Nora's grip tightened on my sleeve, and I softened instantly. "It's fine," I said finally. But my tone made it clear. It wasn't fine and it wouldn't be forgotten. "May I speak with you privately for just a moment?" he asked. "No," Nora whispered instantly, clinging to me. "Mom, don't leave me." I cupped her face. "I'm not going anywhere." Then, to the officer, "Whatever you need to say can be said right here." He hesitated, just for a second, but then nodded. We reviewed the body camera footage from the responding officers. Your daughter did not appear aggressive. She was crying, shaking, and asking him to stop shouting at her. The scratches on his arm appear to be defensive. Nora's breath hitched. I felt heat rise inside me, slow and deadly. So, I asked quietly, "You have evidence that she was the victim?" "Yes, ma'am." "And yet." He lowered his eyes. He filed first. "Until we reviewed the footage, our hands were tied." Nora whispered, "He told them I went crazy. He made it sound like I attacked him. And they believed him." I tilted her chin up gently. They believed the louder story, not the true one. The officer cleared his throat. "If you plan to pursue charges, we'll support it. And for the record, Mr. Ward is still here, in interview room 4. Slowly, deliberately, I turned toward the hallway. My voice dropped to a tone even I didn't recognize. "I assume I'm allowed to see him." The officer swallowed. "If you wish." Nora tugged my sleeve desperately. Mom, don't. Please, let's just go home." I looked at her, really looked at her. Her fear, her exhaustion, her broken trust. And I made a decision. Not for me, for her. I wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "You're right. Tonight, we go home." But inside, a vow was forming, clear, sharp, and unshakable. He wouldn't get away with this. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not ever. We stepped outside into the night, and the cold air wrapped around us like a warning. I held her close. And in my mind, the next steps were already forming, one by one, precise and calculated. The ride home was silent. Not the peaceful kind, but the heavy silence that sits on your chest and makes each breath feel like work. Nora sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, her arms wrapped tightly around herself, as if she were holding her body together. Streetlights passed in long, yellow streaks across her face, each one revealing a new bruise I hadn't seen before. A faint mark near her jaw, a small red line across her collarbone. Shadows of someone else's violence. I gripped the steering wheel harder. Every time I saw one, the pressure in my chest tightened. I wanted to turn the car around. I wanted to march back into that station. I wanted to look Colin Ward in the eyes and ask him what kind of man hurts a woman, then tries to destroy her with lies. But instead, I focused on the road and kept my voice steady. "Nora, did he hit you before tonight?" She didn't answer. She just pressed her forehead against the cold window, her breath fogging the glass in small bursts. "Nora," I said, softly but firmly. Her shoulders trembled. "Mom, I don't want to talk about it." That was enough of an answer. I felt my stomach drop, slow and sickening. A red light forced us to stop. I turned my head slightly, watching her in the dim glow of the dashboard. Her eyes were fixed on nothing. Her lips were pressed together as if she were physically holding the words inside. My daughter had been hurting, and I hadn't known. A guilt so sharp it felt like a blade cut through me. "Nora," I said quietly, "you don't have to explain everything tonight. But I want you to understand something. None of this is your fault. None of it." Her throat bobbed with a swallow, but she still didn't look at me. When the light turned green, I continued driving, letting the quiet settle again. We were halfway home when she finally spoke, barely audible. "He said, if I ever told you what happened, you'd be disappointed in me." My breath caught. She continued, voice breaking. "He said you'd think I was weak, that you'd say I chose the wrong man, that you'd blame me." I pulled the car to the side of the road in an instant, tires crunching against the curb. I put the car in park and turned fully toward her. "Look at me," I said gently. She resisted at first, but then her eyes lifted, wet, defeated, ashamed. It broke me. Nora, I could never be disappointed in you for surviving someone else's cruelty. Her lips trembled, and she exhaled a tiny sob she had been holding in. And you are not weak. Do you understand? It takes strength to endure harm. Real strength. And even more strength to ask for help. She covered her mouth with her hand as tears streamed down. He told them I started it. He said I scratched him. I don't even remember scratching him. I was just trying to get away. I felt my jaw tighten again. The footage cleared that up. They know now. Yeah, she whispered bitterly. Now. Her voice carried a weight that told me she'd been carrying the fear of disbelief for far too long. Come on, I said softly. Let's go home. When we finally pulled into the driveway, she didn't wait for me to help her. She walked straight inside, shoulders slumped, exhaustion consuming her. I locked the door behind us and followed her into the living room, where she sank onto the couch like her bones hurt. I grabbed a blanket and wrapped it around her shoulders. She murmured a quiet thank you, eyes distant. I sat beside her. Do you want to tell me what happened? She shook her head. Not all of it, not yet. Okay, I said, respecting the boundary. Tell me what you can. Her voice shook with every word. We were arguing. He kept blaming me for things that weren't my fault. He said I didn't appreciate him. I didn't listen enough. Then he grabbed me by the arm. Hard. I told him to stop, and he shoved me. I fell into the table. I didn't attack him. I didn't touch him except to push him away so I could breathe. I felt my fingernails digging into my palm. He blocked the door. She whispered. He wouldn't let me leave. He stood in front of it and said he wouldn't move until I apologized. Apologized for making him angry. A bitterness coated her words. I tried to get past him, and that's when I guess that's when I scratched him. I wasn't trying to hurt him. I just wanted out. I was scared. I placed a hand on her back, feeling the tremors still running through her body. And he called the police on you, I said, unable to hide the disgust. He told them I attacked him, she whispered, hugging the blanket tighter. They believed him because he was calm, and I was crying, shaking, a mess. She looked at me now, desperation filling her eyes. Mom, they looked at me like I was crazy. Like I was the problem. A deep, steadying breath filled my lungs. They won't make that mistake again. She blinked. What do you mean? I stood from the couch and walked toward the kitchen, not because I needed anything, but because I needed space to think clearly. The bright kitchen lights illuminated the granite countertops, the neatly arranged fruit bowl, the calm normalcy of home, a sharp contrast to the chaos she had just endured. Nora, I said, leaning against the counter. Men like Colin don't stop. They escalate. They manipulate. They rewrite stories until the victim questions reality itself. She nodded slowly. I know. And he thinks he can scare you, control you, hurt you, then pretend to be the victim because he has a scratch on his arm. My voice grew colder, but he doesn't know who your mother is. Her eyes focused on me, a flicker of something. Caution, curiosity passing through them. Mom, what are you planning? I'm planning, I said in a controlled, even tone, to make sure he never has the opportunity to hurt you or anyone else ever again. Nora's breath caught. Mom, please don't go after him. I just want to move on. I shook my head gently. Moving on doesn't mean pretending he didn't commit a crime. She bowed her head. I don't want a war. I approached her slowly, sitting beside her once more. Nora, this isn't a war. It's justice. And justice is something I have the power and the resources to ensure. She hesitated, clearly torn between fear and relief. Mom, she whispered, just don't make it worse. I placed a hand over hers. I won't make it worse. I'll make it right. She exhaled shakily, leaning her head on my shoulder. For the first time since she called me, her body began to relax. Exhaustion was winning. Her breathing slowed, deepened. The fight left her muscles. Soon she fell asleep against me, her hand still gripping my sleeve like a lifeline. I looked down at her, my heart swelling with love and fury. This was my daughter, my child, and someone had dared to break her spirit. No, not dared, sought to. And that meant he needed to be dealt with accordingly. Quietly, legally, permanently. I stroked her hair gently. Sleep. Sweetheart, I whispered. Mom's got it from here. Nora slept on the couch for almost an hour, her breathing finally steady, her face softening into something peaceful. Something I hadn't seen on her in weeks, maybe months. The more I watched her, the clearer it became. This didn't start tonight. Tonight was simply the breaking point. The moment the truth tore through whatever lies she had been holding on to. When her head finally dipped deeper into the cushion and her grip on my sleeve loosened, I gently eased her down, placing a pillow beneath her cheek and pulling the blanket up to her shoulder. She didn't stir. Her exhaustion was bone deep. I stood slowly, careful not to wake her, and stepped silently into the kitchen, where the glow of the under-cabinet lights cast long shadows across the room. My reflection in the glass oven door stared back at me, tired, furious, controlled. Inside my chest, something cold had formed. A decision. A certainty. Tonight wasn't going to end with him sleeping comfortably, thinking he'd gotten away with rewriting reality. No. Tonight was the night. Everything shifted back into place, exactly where it belonged. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I reached a name I hadn't used in a long time. Adrian Blake, private attorney, crisis strategist, a man who made problems disappear. I pressed call. He picked up on the second ring. Helena? It's been a while. It has, I said quietly, glancing back toward the living room to make sure Nora was still asleep. I need your help. Tell me, he replied without hesitation. My daughter was assaulted by her boyfriend. A pause. Is she safe? She is now, but that's not the issue anymore. I see, he murmured. What exactly do you need? Protection, representation, and a full-scale legal teardown of the man who hurt her. He inhaled sharply, as if resetting himself. Name? Colin Ward. Another pause. I could almost hear him typing. Age? Occupation? 30. Works in real estate, supposedly? I want everything. Employment history, financials, criminal background, known associates. Any woman who ever filed a complaint against him. Understood. And Helena, when you say full-scale teardown, I mean I want him legally buried. I said softly, but with ice in every syllable. I want his lies exposed, his false report withdrawn, his record marked appropriately. And I want him nowhere near my daughter ever again. Adrian's voice lowered. You want a restraining order? At the very least. And charges? If the evidence supports it, which I'm confident it will. He typed again. Give me 30 minutes. I'll call you back. We hung up. I stared at the phone for a long moment, feeling the hum of something powerful stirring in my veins, a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Not since my business battles. Not since I built everything from the ground up with people telling me I'd never make it simply because I wasn't supposed to. But this wasn't business. This was blood. And blood rewrites the rules. I set the phone down on the counter and leaned on both hands, exhaling slowly. My daughter. Hurt. humiliated, terrified, and manipulated so deeply that she believed my disappointment would be worse than her pain. That was when I heard it. The soft, shaky sound of footsteps behind me. I turned. Nora was standing in the doorway, blanket around her shoulders. Cheeks still stained with crying. Her eyes were half open, unfocused, like she was still fighting sleep. "Mom," she whispered. "I'm sorry." My heart cracked. For what? For all of it. For letting it get this bad. For not seeing who he was. For believing him. For not being stronger. I stepped toward her immediately. "Nora," I said, cupping her face gently. "You have nothing to apologize for. Nothing. Do you understand?" She blinked rapidly, trying not to cry again. I thought I could fix him. I thought maybe if I was calmer, or gentler, or patient enough, he'd stop getting angry. Anger twisted in my stomach again, not at her, but at him. At his manipulation, his control, his ability to convince her that his violence was her responsibility. "That's not how love works," I said quietly. "You don't fix a man by breaking yourself." Her lips trembled. I know that now. I pulled her into a hug. She sank into me again, exhaustion returning. "Come on," I whispered. "You need real sleep in your own bed." She nodded weakly. I guided her upstairs, keeping a hand on her back. When we reached her bedroom door, she hesitated. "Mom, will he come here?" "No," I said instantly. "He won't." "But what if he tries? What if?" "He won't," I repeated, with such finality that even she seemed to believe it. She finally walked inside, crawling under the comforter. I tucked her in like I used to when she was small. "Mom?" she whispered. "Yes, sweetheart. Please, don't do anything dangerous." I brushed her hair gently. "You know me better than that. I don't do dangerous. I do strategic." She gave the hint of a tired smile. "That's what scares me." I kissed her forehead. "Sleep. I'm right downstairs." She nodded, eyes sliding shut. I waited until her breathing deepened before leaving the room and pulling the door halfway closed. Downstairs again. The quiet felt different, no longer heavy with fear, but filled with purpose, controlled, sharp. My phone buzzed. "Adrian." I answered instantly. "Helena," he said, "I found something. What is it?" "Your instincts were right. Colin Ward has 2 previous complaints filed against him, both withdrawn under suspicious circumstances. One from a neighbor, one from an ex-girlfriend. Neither pursued charges." My stomach hardened. "There's more," he continued. "His financial history is unstable, possible fraud. And he's currently under internal review at his firm for misconduct." Every word built the case in my mind, piece by damning piece. "Send me everything," I said quietly. "I will. And Helena. Yes, you can crush him with this. Absolutely crush him." I felt the slow, cold burn return to my chest. "Oh," I murmured. "I intend to." But before I hung up, Adrian added one more thing. "And, for what it's worth, I'm sorry this happened to your daughter. No one deserves that." My throat tightened unexpectedly. "Thank you." We hung up, and in the stillness of the kitchen, I whispered to myself, "You picked the wrong girl, Colin." Because he hadn't just hurt her, he had awakened me. The ride home was quiet, but it was the kind of quiet that buzzed with tension, heavy, electric, every streetlight passing like a countdown. Nora sat stiffly in the passenger seat, shoulders tight, hands clasped together in her lap, as if holding herself together physically could protect her from the weight of the evening. I kept my eyes on the road, but my mind was running through 1,000 calculations, strategies, and scenarios. He had dared to touch her, to lie about her, to manipulate a system that should have protected her. Colin Ward had made a fatal mistake. He had underestimated me. The moment we pulled into the driveway, I killed the engine. And the silence in the car felt deafening. Nora didn't move. She hadn't even looked at me, her gaze fixed on the floor as if staring there could make the nightmare disappear. I opened the door and stepped out, the chill of the night seeping into my bones, but I hardly noticed. I walked to her side and opened her door. "Come on," I said softly, keeping my voice calm but firm. "Let's go inside." She hesitated, then slipped out, still hunched, still fragile. I followed her into the house, locking the door behind us, the familiar click resonating with finality. The house was quiet now, but it didn't feel like home. It felt like a battlefield, where one skirmish had ended, but the war was just beginning. Nora sank onto the couch, pulling the blanket I brought from her arms around herself. Her hands clutched at it like it was a lifeline. I crouched beside her, letting her lean against me, feeling the tremors still running through her body. "You're safe now," I whispered. "I've got you." She closed her eyes and exhaled shakily, the tension in her body slowly releasing. I ran my fingers through her hair, trying to soothe the trauma etched into her muscles, the terror in her pulse. I pulled back slightly to look at her, her small, delicate face framed by strands of hair that had escaped her ponytail. Bruises were subtle but visible under the harsh hallway light, marks that told a story I would not allow to continue. I felt a cold breath, precise anger settling in my chest. Colin Ward had no idea what he had just unleashed. I straightened and walked into the kitchen, leaning against the counter as I dialed Adrian Blake again. The phone rang twice before he picked up. "Helena?" His voice was sharp, professional. "I've compiled everything you asked for. Colin Ward's entire background, financials, prior complaints, patterns of abuse, and associates. You'll want to sit down for this one." I smiled faintly, though there was nothing light about it. "Send it over immediately. And Adrian." I let my voice drop a fraction, precise and chilling. "Make sure it's thorough. I want there to be no corner he can hide in. No shadow where he can pretend to be innocent." "You've got it," he replied. "He won't know what hit him." I hung up and turned back to the living room, where Nora had curled into herself, eyes open but distant. She was safe, yes, but the look on her face told me she was carrying the weight of disbelief, of being made to feel guilty for someone else's violence. My heart ached, but I pushed it aside. Feelings wouldn't fix him. Action would. I crouched again, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "Nora," I said, voice low but steady, "I need you to listen to me. You are not at fault. Nothing that happened tonight was your fault." Her lips quivered, and she nodded faintly. I just want it to be over," she whispered. I leaned close, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "It will be, but not by pretending it didn't happen. It ends on our terms, not his." She exhaled, shaky but tentative, as if absorbing my words into some fragile hope. I gave her a few moments to settle, then stood. I paced the kitchen slowly, hands clasped behind my back, thoughts calculating. Every piece of information Adrian would send me would be analyzed, cross-referenced, leveraged. Colin Ward's arrogance had left him exposed. Every lie, every manipulation, every previous complaint, all now a weapon. I glanced at the clock. The night was deep. The world was asleep, unaware that a reckoning had quietly begun in this house. But I didn't wait. I opened my laptop, fingers poised over the keys, ready to coordinate, to strategize, to ensure that Colin Ward would never harm my daughter, or anyone else again. The phone buzzed again. Adrian. The files had arrived. I clicked, scanning the documents with deliberate precision. There it was. Every detail, every inconsistency, every false report, Every shred of evidence that painted Colin as he truly was. Fraudulent activity, histories of coercion, a pattern of abuse meticulously documented in reports that had been ignored or withdrawn under questionable circumstances. I leaned back, letting the weight of it settle. Colin Ward had no idea how deep the storm was that he had provoked. He believed his minor scratches and his falsified statements would protect him. He thought my daughter's vulnerability was a weakness. He thought he could manipulate a police station, the system, even reality itself. But he had underestimated Helena Vale. I picked up my phone, sending a single message to Adrian. Prepare everything for tomorrow morning. No leaks, full exposure. Make it clean, legal, and undeniable. As I set the phone down, Nora stirred, rubbing her eyes, still half asleep, still clinging to the remnants of fear. I crossed the room and crouched beside her again. "Mom," she whispered, voice hoarse. "Yes, sweetheart. Promise me it'll be over. I don't want to see him again. I just want to feel safe." I cupped her face, looking into her eyes, letting her see the steel beneath the calm. "I promise you, Nora, he will never touch you again. He will never have the chance to hurt you, and anyone who tries will regret it." She nodded slowly, a glimmer of trust returning, fragile but real. I pulled the blanket around her shoulders once more, letting her rest while my mind raced through the coming hours. Every call, every meeting, every step had to be precise. One misstep, and Colin Ward might attempt to manipulate the system again. But no, not tonight. Not after what he had done. I stood again, moving to the window, looking out at the dark streets. The world was silent, unaware of the quiet storm brewing inside this house. But by morning, that storm would strike with relentless force. Colin Ward would face the consequences of his choices, and my daughter would finally be free. I turned back to Nora, still curled into herself, and whispered softly, almost to myself, "You're safe now, my brave girl. The rest is just procedure." And in that moment, I realized something. It wasn't just about protecting her anymore. It was about sending a message, a clear, unwavering message that no one could threaten my family and escape accountability. Helena Vale didn't act in haste, but when she did act, the results were absolute. The night stretched on, quiet and heavy, filled with anticipation. I sat back, fingers steepled, thinking of the steps ahead. Evidence, legal strategy, confrontation, exposure. Every piece aligned in my mind, meticulous and unyielding. Colin Ward had made a grave miscalculation. He had faced the wrong person. And by morning, he would understand exactly who had been awakened. The morning sun hadn't fully risen, but the city already hummed with its usual rhythm, unaware of the storm about to descend. I woke early, careful not to disturb Nora, who still slept fitfully in the guest room. Her breathing was uneven, haunted by the remnants of fear from the previous night. I watched her for a moment, tracing the curve of her jaw, the subtle bruises that told me what she had endured. My heart ached, but there was no room for hesitation. Colin Ward had left scars, but he had awakened something far sharper in me. I dressed quickly, choosing a sleek, tailored outfit that conveyed authority without being ostentatious. My phone buzzed immediately. Adrian, he had already prepared everything. Dossiers, timelines, evidence packages, legal documentation. The man had anticipated my every move, but he didn't fully understand what it meant to provoke Helena Vale. "Everything is ready," Adrian said calmly, his tone betraying only a fraction of excitement. "Your daughter's safety is secured, and Colin Ward won't see it coming." "Good," I replied, voice low, deliberate. We leave nothing to chance. I want the police, the courts, everyone aware of every lie, every manipulation, every false statement he ever made. And I want it all airtight. Understood, he said. The first phase is exposure, careful, strategic, undeniable. By the time he realizes what's happening, there will be no room for escape. I hung up and glanced back at Nora's room. She was stirring, eyes opening slowly, the weight of sleep and lingering fear evident in her gaze. I crossed the room, kneeling beside her bed. "Nora," I said softly, "it's morning now. You're safe. You won't have to see him again," turning the quiet house golden and deceptively calm. The calm was a prelude, a necessary disguise for the storm I intended to unleash. By the time we arrived at the office, the city had fully awakened. Traffic roared around us. Pedestrians moved along their routines, oblivious to the reckoning that had already begun. Colin Ward believed he had survived the previous night unscathed, that nothing would touch him. He thought my daughter's tears and fear were contained behind closed doors, that the law and bureaucracy would shield him. But he had forgotten one immutable truth. Helena Vale did not tolerate injustice, and she did not forgive betrayal. Adrian met me outside, a crisp folder in his hands. "All the evidence you need," he said simply. "We've already filed preliminary motions. The restraining order is in place. By midday, he will be formally notified. And the media, well, carefully managed, but it will reach the right eyes." I nodded, scanning the cityscape beyond the office window. The world continued unaware, but I felt the pulse of inevitability. Colin's empire of lies, the persona he cultivated, was already beginning to unravel. "Where is he now?" I asked. "Still in his office," Adrian said. "He thinks everything is normal. He has no idea what's coming." Perfect. I sat at my desk, reviewing each file, each report, each past complaint that had been suppressed or ignored. Patterns emerged, behaviors, manipulations, threats, minor escalations that had gone unpunished. It was meticulous work, but precision was necessary. I could not allow him to slip through a single loophole. Not now, not ever. Hours passed, like minutes. Calls were made, letters dispatched, legal documents filed. Every action was deliberate, calculated, ensuring that Colin Ward's carefully constructed narrative would collapse around him. Every piece of evidence was undeniable. Every witness statement corroborated the truth. Finally, Adrian leaned back, a faint smirk playing on his lips. "It's done. He will be served within the hour. By lunchtime, he will know that the story is no longer his to manipulate." I allowed myself a small, controlled smile. Good. By the time the process server arrived, Colin Ward was seated at his desk, reviewing emails, unaware that the world as he knew it was about to shift. The knock at the door was polite, unobtrusive, but the impact it carried would resonate far beyond that moment. He opened it, expecting routine service. Instead, the folder he was handed was a harbinger, an undeniable account of every lie, every manipulation, every attempt to deceive. He glanced at the documents, then up at the man who handed them to him. Confusion flickered across his features, followed rapidly by fear as realization dawned. The legal notices, evidence files, witness statements, all bore the weight of truth, supported by the law and executed with precision. By noon, Colin Ward was officially restrained from contacting my daughter. Legal proceedings had begun, his past abuses documented in irrefutable detail, and every lie he had told now exposed. The arrogance that had fueled his actions cracked under the weight of reality. He had believed he could manipulate, intimidate, and escape accountability. He had been wrong. I returned home to Nora, who had been nervously pacing the living room, unsure of what the day would bring. I embraced her, letting her feel the tangible assurance of safety. She clung to me, trembling less than before, relief slowly replacing fear. "It's over," I whispered. "You are free." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they were different. Tears of relief, of gratitude, of release from a burden she never should have carried alone. We sat together in silence for a long moment, letting the weight of the day settle. The storm had passed, but its imprint remained in the lessons learned, the vigilance awakened, and the resolve strengthened. Colin Ward would not recover quickly. The consequences of his actions had been made clear, public, and permanent. Later, as the evening approached and the city lights flickered on, I watched Nora from the doorway of her room. She was smiling faintly, the first genuine smile since that night at the police station. A small, private victory. I stepped outside onto the balcony, letting the cool night air wash over me. I allowed myself a rare moment of reflection. Alina Vale had acted not out of vengeance alone, but out of protection, strategy, and the unwavering belief that those who harm others must face the consequences. My daughter was safe, the law was aligned, and the predator who had dared to touch her had been stopped before he could strike again. And as I stood there, the city sprawling endlessly beneath me, I felt a quiet satisfaction. This was not a story of fear or helplessness. It was a story of strength, intelligence, and the absolute certainty that those who threaten family will answer for their actions. Colin Ward had underestimated us, underestimated me, and now he would never make that mistake again. Nora's laughter echoed faintly from inside, soft but genuine, a sound that filled the spaces of the house with warmth and life. I allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. The night was ours. The city could keep turning. Helena Vale had ensured that justice was served, that innocence was protected, and that no one would forget the cost of betrayal. The final files were sent. The legal machinery was in motion. Colin Ward was trapped within it, powerless against the combined force of evidence, law, and the relentless determination of a mother who would not allow her child to be harmed. I watched the horizon, letting the weight of triumph sink in. There was relief, yes, but also a profound clarity. The world recognized power when it saw it, but nothing compared to the force of love and protection in the hands of someone who refused to stand by while injustice prevailed. Tonight, the city would sleep, unaware of the quiet storm that had already struck. But we, Nora and I, would wake tomorrow with certainty, safety, and the knowledge that some mistakes are unforgivable, some predators unmasked, and some mothers unstoppable. I returned inside, closing the balcony door, feeling the warmth of the house, the safety of my daughter, and the absolute certainty of the justice we had enacted. And in that moment, everything was finally right.